Now, as he does each day, he'll walk up to that lectern, and the timing sets up the final time President Obama will hold a news conference as commander-in-chief. That is tomorrow. We are watching it all. We'll bring you updates as they happen.
Fox News alert, the no-shows keep on coming. At this time Friday, 72 hours from now, Donald Trump will be sworn in as America's 45th president. But the number of Democrats planning to skip the inauguration nearly doubling from yesterday. And we could see more. This is Outnumbered. I'm Meghan McCain. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, Fox News political and legal analyst Ebony Williams, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, Fox News digital politics editor Chris Steyerwalt. And sir, you are outnumbered.
I'm feeling it. I'm loving it. How great is
You
this?
know what I've decided?
What?
You are worthy of your own emoji, and I want one on my phone. That look right there.
The bacon sizzling is actually my emoji. If you go on there. That one's dedicated to me.
But I love that look. It could mean a host of things that totally fit my mood.
Amen.
Good to have you.
It's so good to be here. I always love seeing you guys.
Yeah, well, we got big news day. All right, now at least 46 House Democrats, or close to 24% of their caucus, boycotting President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. That number up sharply from 28 yesterday after Mr. Trump blasted Congressman John Lewis for challenging his legitimacy to be the next president. But despite the rancor and bitterness, the incoming administration is offering an olive branch.
We hope that these Democratic members of Congress reconsider. They are certainly welcome to the inauguration.
Right.
If they want to contact any of us, they're welcome to do that. I would note that it was Governor Pence of Indiana who was the only Republican governor to go. He went to President Obama's inauguration. Maybe he was previewing the platform for himself 4 years later, but he went to show respect, and he went to honor our president.
Meantime, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, who made waves by testifying against Attorney General nominee Jeff Sessions last week, says he will attend the inauguration but will fight Mr. Trump's agenda every step of the way. So I'm obviously going to go to you first, Chris. Congressman Lewis boycotted President Bush's inauguration as well.
And said he wasn't legitimate either.
And said he wasn't legitimate either.
Not an Electoral College fan.
What do you make of the rising number of Democrats refusing to attend?
I think that they are allowing themselves to be controlled by Donald Trump to a shocking degree. I think that their inability to control their feelings and focus on the work of government and focus on things at hand put them in, whether they like it or not, a supplicant position. Donald Trump is driving the discussion. He's driving the agenda. He is calling the tune, and they're dancing to it, and it is a political miscalculation. But it's also, I think this is more important, it's not healthy for the country. People boycotted Bush. Somebody boycotted Obama. This will escalate, right? You have this time.
It's
the next
already
president,
doing it.
right?
It's already
It'll just
escalating.
get worse and worse and worse, and these institutions can't withstand non-participation.
Yeah, Sunday night we had 20. Yesterday we were up to like 28, and now we're at 46. And 13 out of all the House Democrats skipping the inauguration are from California, so the list grows. You know, I would just point out, while, you know, you want to get cozy and understand, especially if you're a Democrat this time around, how the Electoral College works. I implore everybody to look that up. But, you know, those are people who were supposed to go and vote, those electors, according to what they were tasked to do. We only saw, that I've seen confirmed, one faithless elector, and that was for Hillary Clinton. That person wanted to vote for somebody other than Hillary Clinton.
There were 5 for Hillary Clinton, 1 for Donald Trump. They went, Hillary Clinton, they had a strategy. They said, well, we'll faithlessize ourselves in hopes that we can convince people to vote against Trump. And the Trump voters, the Trump electors stayed, and so Hillary Clinton ended up being, this effort that Democrats undertook on her behalf diminished her in the end instead of diminishing Donald Trump, and now they're doing it again.
My point of all of this is that legitimate voters tasked these electors with what they needed to go to after they were put in place. Right? So the legitimacy is per the votership.
Right. And the legitimacy is the President of the United States. You heard Joe Biden when he brought the gavel down, and he goes, it's over. The Democrats are protesting in the House when they're trying to lodge the vote. He says, it's over. Get on with it. And because Democrats can't get on with it, they continue to be spinning their wheels. They're just spinning their wheels, and they're relitigating this election over and over and over again. Why did Donald Trump win? Well, I can think of about 50 reasonably good reasons that we could discuss right now. Democrats don't like some of them. Republicans don't like some of them. Big deal.
Meghan, do you have that sound of Charles Krauthammer? Because I think that was super telling of him saying how these Democrats skipping inauguration is not a good sign. Could we listen to that?
It's a sign of the sort of loosening of the threads of our sort of constitutional system. It's a minor one, but it does show that the trust in institutions has declined radically. since the Second World War. About the only remaining one that is trusted is the military. And this is not a good sign.
I thought that was really telling, and I was going to bounce that back to you because he went on to say, you know, Lewis is a genuine hero, but he should be cognizant of the moral weight that he carries.
Yeah, listen, I think Charles Krauthammer is brilliant, and I completely echo what he just said. I keep thinking about Congressman Lewis because he, as we now know, boycotted George W. Bush. He accused my father of being like George Wallace. He attacked Mitt Romney, bringing up race-baiting issues, and now he's attacking Donald Trump. And the problem that Democrats have right now is if all Republicans are evil, none of us are evil. And they're not picking their battles. So if all of us are sort of, you know, George Wallace, which again, that's not my words, it's Congressman Lewis's words, you lose your ammo to ever actually criticize any policies you disagree with coming up in this administration. And they're really putting themselves in a corner because they just look like partisan hacks. And also, any of you, I bet you can at least find one person in your district that voted for Donald Trump. How do you think they feel with their congressman boycotting this election? I just think it's bad for America, and I think it's bad for democracy, and I think it's a bad look all around.
Okay, so I totally do not agree with the boycott. I actually think Cory Booker is really sounding more reasonable on this. Look, I'm going to go. I'm going to respect the inauguration of our new president. However, policy-wise, I plan to fight him all the way. That kind of makes sense to me. Chris, you brought up feelings, and I don't disagree with anything that's been said on the couch so far, but I want to go to someone else's feelings, and those are the feelings of our president-elect. And I can tolerate a lot of things. Hypocrisy is not one of them. So when our president-elect, you know, has been someone who for 7 years did put out energy around questioning the legitimacy of a sitting president, I don't understand. You can do that. That's fine. You can absolutely, he can do that. But then you've got to ride with the consequences of that energy that you put out there. So I don't understand why our president-elect seems to be so in his feelings in this moment around someone, John Lewis in this case, questioning his legitimacy.
All right, meantime, New York Times columnist Paul Krugman not only defending Congressman John Lewis for calling President-elect Trump illegitimate, but calling it patriotic. Krugman asks, is it okay morally and politically to declare the man about to move into the White House illegitimate? Yes, it is. In fact, it's an act of patriotism. Patriotism means standing up for your country's values, not pledging personal allegiance to dear leader. Krugman goes on to explain why he thinks it's important to question Mr. Trump's power, writing, quote, talking frankly about how Mr. Trump gained power isn't just about truth-telling. It may also help to limit that power. Congress will be much more likely to stand up to a rogue, would-be authoritarian executive if its members realize that they will face a political price if they act as his enablers. Chris Stirewalt is on the couch. Worried. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think the problem that we have right now is we're misunderstanding, or a lot of people are misunderstanding what legitimate and illegitimate means. And to Harris's point earlier, he meets the constitutional requirements. He was elected president of the United States. He is, you may not like it, but he is legitimately your president, Paul Krugman. He's legitimately the president for the whole country. So using the fact that Russians hacked the DNC or what the FBI said about Hillary Clinton as a way to diminish his election, you can do that all you want, but you know what you won't do? You won't stop him in his agenda. Right now, Paul Ryan, Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell have got the football, and it looks like open field right in front of them, and the Democrats are standing on the sideline saying they didn't really win the coin toss. See, the coin toss, they didn't really win the coin toss because the heads wasn't really the heads and the tails wasn't really the tails, and they're not blocking. Cory Booker's right. If the Democrats want to be viable, they have to stop Donald Trump on issues, on agenda items, not just go back and relitigate the election.
It's a total red herring, right? I mean, it's so actually distracting for the Democrats when they should be, as Harris points out, kind of re-looking at, okay, guys, obviously we're doing something really wrong here, that this thing came down like this, and we didn't even foresee it.
Well, it is obvious.
It's very obvious, and they really could be taking this time to do that and reflect and thinking about 2018 and just a whole host of things that they should be doing policy-wise to position them better than they are. Instead, spending all this time relitigating this, it's not helpful. And after 4 years, if all the Democrats can tell their constituents is that we formidably oppose the president, that's a disservice to your district and to the American people.
I have not been tasked with proselytizing. amazing. Nobody expects me to do that. But I will say that it is not an accident that one of the tenets in the Bible is get the stick out of your own eye before you look at your neighbor. I don't think that the Democrats are willing to do that right now. So they're going to stay focused in on this. And do you know what's going to happen on Monday? We found that out from the Times of London interview with Mr. Trump over the weekend. He's going to start with his executive orders. He's going to roll like that. So they can either get on board or watch from afar, which I guess is what they're going to do with the inauguration, because I haven't heard anybody actually offering up their tickets. So they're still collectibles.
But I use the analogy of if you had a bowling ball in a net and you cut one strand, the weight on the other strands that are holding that ball up increases. And what we're doing now is we're cutting these threads around our institutions. We are, as Dr. Kay was saying, we are damaging these things, and the weight is shifting. And I promise you, if the institutions of this republic fail, it won't be one and we'll say, oh, that was too bad. But instead, we could experience systematic problems. And Democrats need to, Republicans do too.
That's a great caution.
Yeah, but everybody ought to be responsible.
Oh, I think Paul Krugman's a moron, and I don't know why anyone listens to anything he said ever since he said that Donald Trump was hoping for another 9/11. I mean, I don't think he should be allowed to write anymore. I just think he's a moron. I can't. How much more of his columns have to be subjected to? All
right, we'll leave it there.
Laughing.
In short. And in these final days leading up to the inauguration, keep it right here, of course, and on Friday, you do not want to miss a single minute of coverage. Fox News Channel will bring you this historic day like no one else can. We are awaiting, by the way, the very last White House briefing under the Obama administration. This, as one former press secretary says, for the last 8+ years, the media was soft on Mr. Obama. Whether they're changing their tune now because of President-elect Donald Trump. And Hillary Clinton's campaign operatives appear to be fueling an effort to delegitimize the president-elect. What key players are doing and whether it's appropriate.
Break in with this breaking news. What we've been watching for, that is Josh Earnest on the left of your screen, the White House press secretary, and his very last press briefing to the White House press corps. He's giving early personal thoughts at this point. This, of course, comes a day before President Obama is set to give his final briefing before the press corps as well. So we will go to live now and watch this together. Josh Earnest, will they ask tough questions, or what will this be like? Let's watch together.
I had no relevant Washington experience. I was sleeping on the floor of a college buddy's apartment that had a spare bedroom. And by spare, I don't just mean it was an extra bedroom. It was an empty bedroom containing only the items that I'd managed to load into my car when I moved here from Texas. So it's fair to say that there weren't too many other people on the tour that night who thought I would stand here in front of you as something other than a tourist. So it's been an extraordinary journey, and this has been an extraordinary chapter. This is the 354th White House daily briefing that I have led as the press secretary. Mark can check me on that number. Not every briefing started exactly on time. There might have been a briefing or two that went a little longer than you would have preferred. But you have to admit, there was a lot to discuss. We had plenty of shameless plugs for the Kansas City Royals to squeeze in. There was, of course, the Freedom Caucus's infamous Tortilla Coast gambit. There was Congressman Steve Scalise, who reportedly compared himself favorably to David Duke. There was the reintroduction of the word snafu into the political lexicon as we were working to pass TPA. We discussed at length the various ways you can catch Zika, the various ways you can catch Ebola, and the various reasons scientists recommend you vaccinate your kids so that you don't catch the measles. Jon Stewart lit me up as I struggled to explain to John Carl why a couple of our political ambassadors, for some reason, had no idea what they were doing. At least the Stewart segment made some of my friends laugh. President-elect Trump, of course, took advantage of the opportunity to light me up as a foolish guy who makes even the good news sound bad. And I have to admit that even that one made me laugh. But it wasn't always fun and games around here. There was the time that I tangled with Senator Schumer about DHS funding for New York City, and the time that I tangled with Senator Schumer over the Iran deal, and the time that I tangled with Senator Schumer over the JASTA legislation, and the time I tangled with Senator Schumer over the wisdom of passing Obamacare, and the time I tangled with Senator Schumer over Trade Promotion Authority legislation. And to think, we actually spent most of the last 2.5 years complaining about how unreasonable Republicans in Congress are. The daily briefing, of course, is the most high-profile part of the press secretary's job, but it's not the only part that matters. The more important part, in many ways, is working with all of you and ensuring that the freedom of the press, that keeps this democracy vital. When I first entered this role, I worked closely with the White House Travel Office and the Department of Defense to reform the billing process for your flights in military aircraft, including Air Force One, making those bills more transparent and smaller. In the last 2.5 years, we've cajoled governments in China, Ethiopia, and Cuba to host news conferences on their soil, allowing the leaders of those countries and their citizens to see firsthand what it means for independent journalists to hold those in power accountable. Of course, it was the end of the year news conference that the President convened in this room in 2014 that got as much attention as any other, because President Obama called on 8 journalists, all women. And finally, everything that, about this final week makes me think of all the incredible people whom I've been blessed to work with these past 8 years. I only had this opportunity because Robert Gibbs pulled me aside on election night 2008 in Chicago as the returns were coming in to tell me that he wanted me to come work with him at the White House. I'm only here because Jay Carney, Jennifer Palmieri, and Dan Pfeiffer supported and encouraged me when I was the deputy and advocated for me when Jay stepped down. I've also benefited from a kitchen cabinet of senior White House officials who've got a lot of other important responsibilities who are part of their formal job description, but stepped in to help me out every time I asked for it. That's people like Dennis McDonough and Susan Rice and Jennifer Psaki, Liz Allen, Jesse Lee, Cody Keenan, and of course Ben Rhodes. And I've only been able to do this job because I have an incredible team around me. My assistants over the years, Jeff Tiller, Antoinette Rangel, and now Desiree Barnes, all patiently supported a guy who, let's face it, sometimes isn't so easy to assist. The White House stenographers, Dominique Dansky-Berry, Beck Dory Stein, Amy Sands, Mike McCormick, Caitlin Young, and their tireless leader, Peggy Suntum. They work as hard as anybody at the White House and complain about it less than anybody at the White House. Applause is appropriate at that point. I think the only team that may contend with him might be the research department here at the White House that's led by Alex Plotkin and Kristen Bartoloni. But I hope you'll get a chance over the course of the next week to thank the stenographers for their important work, because I know they make your lives a lot easier too. The same goes for Peter Vels, Brian Gabriel, and Sarah Rutherford, who are stretched as thin and who are at least as effective as any team of press wranglers we've ever had here at the White House. My colleagues at the NSC, including Ned Price, Emily Horn, Mark Stroh, Carl Woog, and Du Tiantawat, have patiently explained to me things that I didn't know so that I could in turn explain them to you. My team in lower press, Patrick Rodenbush, Katie Hill, and Brandy Hoffine, is as talented and as dedicated as any press team in this town. I begged Brandy to join this team when I first got this job, and her performance has far exceeded the sky-high recommendations I got from people all over town after I interviewed her. They are all, Katie, Brandy, and Patrick, as they say, going places. Eric Schultz is simply the best deputy that anyone in any field could ask for. He shows up early, he stays late, he's deft. That's an inside joke. He's always prepared, he's unfailingly loyal. His judgment is sought after throughout the halls of the White House, not just by me, but by various members of the senior staff. And I'm sure that will be sought after in his bright post-White House future too, including by me. When you're President of the United States, and widely regarded as among the most thoughtful and eloquent speakers on the planet, it must be hard to watch someone go on TV and speak for you. I suspect that's why when the President offered me this job, he said he wouldn't watch my briefings. But I know that he saw parts of them on those very rare occasions that he watched cable TV. And he never second-guessed me. Not once. He didn't just give me the opportunity of a lifetime. He had my back every single day, and I'm grateful for it. But there is one person who contributed to my success more than anyone else, and she doesn't even work at the White House. My wife Natalie was 6 months pregnant with our first child when I got this job. She was home with the air conditioning repairman when the President of the United States called me into the Oval Office to offer me the job. When I got back to my desk, I saw that I had several missed calls on my cell phone from her. I quickly called her back. I told her that I was sorry that I missed her calls, but that I had the best possible excuse for missing them. Since then, she's extended to me more support and understanding than I could ever ask for, even as she was becoming the best mom any 2-year-old kid could hope for. When I missed the mark up here, she didn't hesitate to tell me about it. And when I got it right the next day, it was usually because I followed her advice. So thank you, sweetheart, for your patience, your loyalty, your counsel, and your love. Without it, I would not be standing here. And I'll never be able to make it up to you, but I look forward to spending some more time with you in Walker so I can give it a shot. Serving as the White House press secretary under President Obama has been an incredible honor. I've had the opportunity to advocate for his vision of the country, the same vision that deeply resonated with me when I signed up to work for him in Iowa in March 2007. And while those of us who have been fortunate enough to serve him here will go on to make a difference in new ways, I take heart in knowing that all of you will still be here. I draw confidence in knowing that you are driven by the same spirit that prompted those young kids that I mentioned at the top of my briefing a couple of weeks ago to move to an Iowa town that they'd never heard of to organize support for the Obama campaign. You have the same determination as the young people who are moving to Washington, D.C. today with no job, with no contacts and no prospects, who are hoping to work in the Trump administration. You're motivated in the same way as the career civil servants, like the ones at the Department of Education, who's trying to stretch her agency's budget to ensure as many Hispanic kids as possible can get a decent education. You have so much in common with these people because each of you and what you do every day is critical to the success of our democracy. There will be days when you'll show up to work tired. I know the same was true of those Obama organizers in Iowa. There will be days where you will feel disrespected. And I know many of the young Republican staffers who move to Washington looking for a job will feel that way at times. It's hard to pound the pavement in this town when you don't know anybody. There'll be days where you will wonder if what you're doing even makes a difference. And I know that our civil servants sometimes wonder the same thing. But I assure you, if you, the most talented, experienced, effective press corps in the world, didn't play your part in our democracy, we would all notice. Your passion for your work and its centrality to the success of our democracy is a uniquely American feature of our government. It's made President Obama a better president and a better public servant. And it's because you persevere and you never go easy on us. So even though it's my last day, you better not let up now. So in that spirit, let me say for the last time standing up here, Josh, you want to get started with questions?
Sure. Thanks, Josh.
I'm not interrupting because he was saying nice things about you guys, because I largely concur. When I first met Josh Earnest, he was in Iowa. I think he was wearing jeans. He looked even younger than he was. And since my entire campaign depended on communications in Iowa, I gave him a pretty good once-over. And there are a couple things I learned about him right away. Number one, you know, he's just got that all-American matinee good-looking thing going. That's helpful, let's face it. Face made for television. Then the guy's name is Josh Earnest, which, if somebody's speaking on your behalf, is a pretty good name to have. But what struck me most, in addition to his smarts and his maturity and his actual interest in the issues, was his integrity. You know, there are people you meet who you have a pretty good inkling right off the bat are straight shooters and were raised to be fundamentally honest and to treat people with respect. And there are times where that first impression turns out to be wrong and you're a little disappointed and you see behind the curtain that there's spin and some hype and, you know, posturing going on. But then there's others who, the longer you know them, the better you know them, the more time you spend with them, the more you're tested under tough situations, the more that initial impression is confirmed. And I have now known this guy for 10 years almost. And I've watched him grow, and I've watched him advance, and I've watched him marry, and I've watched him be a father, and I've watched him manage younger people coming up behind him, and he's never disappointed. He has always been the guy you wanted him to be. And I think that, you know, if you're the President of the United States and you find out that this is the guy who has been voted the most popular press secretary ever by the White House press corps, that may make you a little nervous. He's thinking, well, maybe the guy's kind of being too solicitous towards the press. But the fact is that he was worthy of that admiration. He was tough, and he didn't always give you guys everything he wanted, but he was always prepared. He was always courteous. He always tried to make sure that he could share with you as much of our thinking and our policy and our vision as possible, and tried to be as responsive as possible, and that's how he trained the rest of his team to be. Of the folks that I've had the great joy and pleasure of working with over the last 10 years on this incredible journey, this guy ranks as high as just about anybody I've worked with. He is not only a great press secretary, but more importantly, he is a really, really good man, and I'm really, really proud of him. So, Josh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Natalie and Walker, thanks for putting up with all of this, because they've made sacrifices too.
Thank you, sir.
Before you go, response to Vladimir Putin.
I'm going to be
Where were you going on Friday?
Well, that was awfully generous. The president will be back tomorrow. He'll be standing here, and he'll be answering your questions. Today you're going to settle for me. So, Josh, you want to get us started?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. And I want to thank you and your team for your hard work and service in your roles. We've all hustled aggressively with you over the last many years, but that was as it should be. And you all have continued to always engage with us, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Josh.
Following up on the question that was just asked, have the Obamas decided where they will be heading when they board the presidential aircraft for the final time on Friday?
Yes. Josh, I can tell you that the first family is looking forward to flying to Palm Springs, California on Friday. The president vowed to take his family to a destination that is warmer than Washington, D.C. On Friday, and Palm Springs fits the bill. This is a community that the president's visited on a number of occasions as President of the United States. He and his family have enjoyed the time they've spent there in the past, and they're looking to travel there on Friday. Looking forward to traveling there on Friday.
And President...
All right, so there you have it. The president stepping up just moments ago with two things about Josh Earnest, the man that you see who's outgoing as press secretary now. He had two things going for him, the president said. He has a face made for TV, and his name is Ernest, which might be a good quality to have as somebody speaking on your behalf. The toughest question, though, that we saw was as President Obama was leaving the room, and Josh Earnest was asked, "Sir, before you go, your response to Putin." So you've been to these things. You know how this works, Chris. They step up to the microphone. This is the last one. We, with bated breath, thought perhaps a tough question. The first is, what is decidedly warmer than D.C. where the president will be hanging out?
Well, look, I am going...
Was that harsh?
I'm going to give... So there are reasonable questions to be asked about the conduct of reporters with the Obama administration over the last 8 years. But on the last day...
That would have been on the table.
On the last day, you get a mulligan, right? You get a freebie, because these people, and this is something that right now there are 25 and 28-year-old young people who are coming to Washington, and Ernest referenced these people to go work for Donald Trump. They've never done this before. They're from places like Clinton, West Virginia. They're from places all over the country. They're from little towns and big cities, and they're coming to Washington. Their lives are going to be changed. They're going to change the country. Things are going to be different. And here's what I think, and because I'm a big dork, I think it's awesome. I think it's great.
Well, he was one of those guys.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what the president was saying. You know, I remember 8 years ago when he worked his way up the ranks. So former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer had something to say about the calls for media growing tougher. Watch this.
I think the problem began when Barack Obama was a candidate, and if you remember Saturday Night Live in 2007, pilloried Obama's and the media for putting a pillow underneath Barack Obama instead of covering him. And frankly, the coverage for 8 years was soft. And now all of a sudden, because of Donald Trump, they want to change their tune. They should have been like this all along.
Megan?
Yeah, I mean, to completely echo what he said, I think we've been saying this on the couch all last week and this week. The press corps has 100% been soft on this administration. I think historically we will look back at this time, and I said borderline propaganda came out of the majority of the liberal press corps. Now they choose to be hard-hitting journalists because someone they ideologically disagree with is in office. Yeah, I see it as a little bit hypocritical, but that being said, I think anyone who is going to put any president or government official's feet to the fire and call out hypocrisy will be a nice change.
It didn't help to have an advisor to the White House, Ben Rhodes, tell us that there were friendly media people that he knew where they could get out a narrative. He was boasting about that. And then when he got called to Capitol Hill, he was not available to go testify about that very thing.
Yeah, I don't think any of this is really a secret, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how things change. I mean, you were just looking back at the White House press briefings and saying, these aren't really being held in the capacity in which they were meant for. And that is about to change under the incoming administration, the way those will look.
Well, we're getting ready to find out. We'll see.
Sean Spicer has said many times that he plans to change things up a little bit.
And there's going to be a fight. Look, there was some excellent journalism done in the Obama era. Overall, the tone and tenor was very flattering. He got more favorable coverage than any president in recent memory. And his departure, the writing about his departure, Todd Purdom in Vanity Fair, Obama belongs to the ages, he writes today. And it has been fawning in a way that if they had written about George W. Bush, let's say, people would have said, are you high? Like, what are you talking about? Democrats love him, and reporters tend to be more likely to be Democrats than Republicans, so I get all that. But I will say this. If they want to take the White House press corps out of the White House, they're going to have a fight on their hands. That is a 100% fight. Donald Trump hates the media, stipulated. Many in the media hate Donald Trump, stipulated. This is not the first time that we've seen this. We've seen the Nixon administration, we've seen it in other administrations, this sort of fight. It's going to come to a head. But if they try to kick the White House press corps out of the White House that's been there for generations, good luck.
Yeah, and it's less about, I would think, Ebony, just from kind of a legal standpoint, less about traditionality and more about really what we've been called to do as journalists per the Constitution.
No, that's completely true. And when we talk about free press, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've been hearing this. Yes, like where are we headed in terms of the true freedom of our press and where it's going to go and what it's going to look like under President Trump's administration? I agree with exactly what Chris is saying. I mean, you cannot deny that access. It has to be there. We can argue, and look, I don't disagree. I think that the press has been very flattering to President Obama. I contest it's more than just ideological. I think there's something deeper there. I think they probably wouldn't have been as flattering to a Hillary Clinton as they were to even Barack Obama. So I don't think it's just partisanship. Sure. I think there was something that it was kind of lightning in a glass bottle for Barack Obama, for many of these young aspirational types. But anyways, back to Trump. Yeah, they're going to have to figure that out, what that relationship is going to look like in a way that serves the American people. Perhaps it's a return to more fairness and objectivity with journalism, but it's going to have to remain intact to some degree.
The only conversation I've had recently where the words fat sloppy kiss did not come up with regard to the media, and I'll move on. Remember when candidate Hillary Clinton lectured Donald Trump on accepting the election results? Now, the apparent push by some of her former top campaign aides to delegitimize the Trump presidency. Is this any way for our nation to move forward? We'll talk about it.
During that debate, Donald said something, well, he said a lot of things that were troubling, but he said something truly horrifying. He became the first person running for president, Republican or Democrat, who refused to say that he would respect the results of this election. Now, that is a direct threat to our democracy. I'm not going to try to call it anything else because that's what it is.
That was Hillary Clinton, you'll remember, during the campaign. But now, after she lost the election, some of her former campaign operatives don't appear to be following that same advice. Instead, they're fueling efforts to delegitimize President-elect Trump. The Washington Times pointing out that former Clinton spokesman Brian Fallon has said there's, quote, too much evidence that Mr. Trump conspired with Russian spies trying to rig the election. Former Clinton campaign communications director Jennifer Palmieri used Twitter to circulate maps of protest sites for the inauguration on Friday. And Neera Tanden, a policy advisor on Hillary's campaign, has changed her Twitter photo to the word resist. I cannot resist going to you. I mean, you heard it there.
Well, look, principled opposition to your political foe is just as American as apple pie. It's great, it's appropriate, it's patriotic, it's how the system works. We have a competitive system that is designed, because you know what, it's better than chasing each other around in the streets and beating each other with sticks and rocks. We have a system where we can take our conflicts and people can disagree and we can sort it out. We have elections and then we have votes and it works. It's super duper. However, if you want to resist, that's great. Let the inauguration happen, for goodness sakes. Look, if there was, if hearings eventually revealed diabolical, sinister plots between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin and all, then murder will out. Then it will come out, and it will be whatever. And whatever is going to happen in the future is going to take place. It is Tuesday. On Friday, Donald Trump is going to take the oath of office. He will be president for all of the people. It is the truth. And what I do not understand, what I absolutely fail to understand, is how Democrats cannot say they chose a campaign strategy predicated on, to use a word from academia, othering Donald Trump. They were going to make him unacceptable. He was going to be, electing Donald Trump is going to bring about the apocalypse. Electing Donald Trump is totally unacceptable. He will destroy the country. And now they can't get over their own rhetoric. They're still trapped in the rhetoric they use.
The other seem to also stick to Hillary Clinton because she was other than somebody who would not have had a secret server while at the Department of State.
Yes.
I mean, the othering was just complicated for the Democrats. My question, though, is you're president. You faced headwind, President Obama. You're stepping up tomorrow with your final news conference. Do you take an opportunity to get on that road where literally you could drive down the center lane and honk your horn all day long, the high road, and say,
no, but that's what Reince Priebus is pushing to do. He's saying step up, grow up, get everybody together. I mean, this is the day America's supposed to come together.
I think you're giving all these people too much credit. There are reports everywhere that all these staffers are. You're the optimist. I have the cold, dark heart on this couch. All of these staffers are having a really hard time getting jobs. There are reports about it. Who's going to hire Brian Fallon? He's a terrible spokesperson. These people will terrible at their jobs. This is an epic, historic loss that they're going to be tarnished with for the rest of their careers. I think they're trying to save face. I think they're trying to not take responsibility and blame everybody else, Russia, whatever. Couldn't be that you ran a horrible campaign with a horrible candidate. And I think they're trying to get work.
Well, and if you're going to try to save yourself, at least just admit you lost.
Yeah, well, and here's that hypocrisy I spoke of earlier all over again. It doesn't look any better on, Hillary Clinton's camp. And here's the issue. If this were a court of law, I know it's not, but, indulge the legal nerd in me for a second.
We love when you do this.
We would, that clip we introed her with, that's called impeachment. That is literally just play that and let her impeach herself around. Okay. Literally, Chris, literally that. And that's the worst kind of thing. And do I think President Obama is going to take the opportunity Harris spoke of? If I'm putting money on it, probably not. But I certainly wish that he would.
Let's spend Chris's money.
Wait a minute.
But I wish you would. I don't know that people would even listen to him in the party, but it would be a nice final opportunity.
That's an interesting point. And with Brian Fallon and the rest looking for jobs, remember the president just threw all of them under the bus because he says his ideas weren't thrown.
They should go to Hollywood.
Well enough by
a lot of ex-liberal people end up in Hollywood. Trust me, I lived there for a little bit. Yeah. They should get easy, man. Ain't for you.
All right. Well, after backlash from feminists, the leaders of a women's protest march planned the day after the inauguration are now dropping a pro-life group as an official partner. But doesn't the march claim to speak for all women? Where's the tolerance?
Leaders of the Women's March on Washington protesting President-elect Trump on Saturday are now dropping a pro-life feminist group as an official sponsor. This after backlash from other feminist march organizers saying, quote, "We want to assure all of our partners as well as participants that we are pro-choice as clearly stated in our unity principles. We look forward to marching on behalf of individuals who share the view that women deserve the right to make their own reproductive decisions." The anti-choice organization in question is not a partner of the Women's March on Washington. We apologize for this error. The pro-life group, the New Wave Feminists, are still vowing to march anyway, responding, quote, "This one goes out to the Women's March on Washington. Just yesterday we were together, but it's okay, boo. We understand. Not everyone's strong enough to stand up to the haters. Luckily, we've had some practice. Either way, see you Saturday."
Wow.
So I'm always hesitant to join anything labeled feminist anymore because it's always sort of interpreted as pro-choice and liberal. Like, feminism means you're pro-choice and liberal now, right?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to yield all my time to you.
Well, don't I know about it? Don't I just know about all this? Don't I just know
It's going to be good. Watch.
When I got my women's studies major at Hamilton. No, look, we have watched this march eat itself before or already. There was a discussion about intersectionality and about that white racism, that white women participating in the march needed to understand their privilege and that stuff. And I thought, well, this isn't going very well. Now they're kicking out pro-lifers. And what's interesting is Democrats cannot understand how they lost to Donald Trump, even as they're repeating the things in real time, even as they're doing the things that caused their defeat. On this one, you would think that they'd say, any ladies, any guys, anybody who wants to come out and join our march, get out here.
Let me help you with it. Let me help you with it. The word is Americans.
That's right. Anybody who wants to come out here and do this, because the message was at the outset simple. We oppose Donald Trump's policies the day after his inauguration.
But let's be clear, they're not calling this an anti-Trump protest.
They're calling this
They say they are.
This is on behalf of women.
But it's the day after the inauguration.
Right.
But the group that they are excluding has voiced concern, calling Donald Trump a misogynist.
Yep.
So why wouldn't they include him?
That's why this is really actually ridiculous. It's like Chris said, they're getting in their own way. So one's pro-choice, one's... Actually, you're right, Megan. That's what feminist has become. Those of us who know what the word actually means know it's not that at all. It's actually just believing in the equal application of rights for women. It's really not anything more complicated than that. And so when you have someone in alignment with you on just this issue around Donald Trump and his feminist attitudes, what have you, get in lock and step on one accord.
But it's more politically advantageous for liberals to divide the line down for feminism, to say that if you love women and want everything for them, you're on our
side. You gotta be a feminist
but
like
if
this.
you don't,
like this.
then you're on the other side, and there's no gray area. So you can't be pro-life and also feel the way we do, blah, 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 blah. And I say Americans because this is a free country. It's only apparently not free if you want to march on Saturday.
There's a long history, though, of people... Why do you think that's so funny, Greg?
Saturday, you're out. Not free on Saturday. Saturday, you're out.
But there's a long, long history of the media and, quote, feminist organizations excluding strong pro-life women because it goes against their narrative of what it means to be a modern, empowered woman. I am 100% proud pro-life woman. I'm also a career woman and all these other things, and it doesn't go in with the narrative that the liberal media wants about what women are. And I'm not surprised by this. I have met few people who are going to this march. No one can explain to me exactly what this is for, except being against Donald Trump. So feminism.
But can I tell you, they state that their purpose is to send, quote, send a bold message that women's rights are human rights. That is their
Yeah,
message.
but being pro-life is a human right too, to a lot of us. It's just the absolute hypocrisy at the 10th degree, and it's why they're going to exclude a whole swath of women in the country.
And again, getting in their own way, because the more narrowly you define feminists, you do yourselves, and apparently your cause, so you say, a big disservice.
Well, men, female, women, I don't know. We're going to get to the point where, like, women can't be part of it.
Yeah. Okay.